Fellow actors, writers, directors, and production crew, welcome to Small Talk with Tony, the interview series where we sit down with people in the biz to make small talk. I'm your host, the owner, chief storyteller, and the Tony behind Tony Video. Now, over the course of this series, you will hear stories and personal experiences from people just like you. So, let's make some small talk.
Actions always find a way to shine brighter than the things you say.
So, today's guest is the remarkable Stan Klimecko. Stan is a local SAG and equity actor from Niagara Falls, New York, and he has appeared in many short films, feature films, as well as professional stages in both Los Angeles and New York City. He was nominated for Outstanding Leading Actor in his role in The Onion Game, and I've had the pleasure of sharing the stage with Stan in the show Entertaining Mr. Sloan at the Irish Classical Theatre Company. So will everyone please join me in giving a very warm welcome. Stan, thank you so much for taking the time for some small talk.
Happy to be here, Tony.
Well, Stan, you have a lot of experience in the acting world, not only as an actor, but as a former manager and producer. So, when we had the chance to work together, I really felt like I got to know you a bit more. So you had mentioned that you discovered the theater and acting itself. So what did you discover and how did that come about?
I was about 15, 16 years old, and I had sort of what is considered a traditional upbringing in Niagara Falls, New York. I played a lot of sports, whatever was in season, baseball, football, hockey, around the neighborhood, Little League, and was involved in the Boy Scouts, but not too much experience in the arts. And I went on to high school, and I went to see a play. A few of my friends were involved in the theater, and it was the first real play I had ever seen, and it was kind of a wonderment to me, even though it was just a high school production. They had the old age makeup, and I was really riveted, and it struck a nerve with me, and something in me said, I think I want to try that, even though I had never even thought about it before I saw that play. It was also, as often the times in a high school production, the girls, the females, were much stronger than the men, so there was something that said, I think I can do that. I also wanted to meet some of the girls involved, but I was a shy kid, and I kind of got my nerve up, and I auditioned for the next play, and it was a musical, and I got cast in a chorus part, and that was fun. But then the teacher, his name was Leon Packman. Unfortunately, I went to his wake last week. He was a real prominent teacher in my life. He passed away, but he loved American theater and American classics, and he loved Arthur Miller and Tennessee Williams. And for the play that year, he did A View from the Bridge, which was about working class and immigrants. I'm half Italian heritage, so it really stuck to me that theater was for the people, and it really I was able to relate to it. And I played Mr. Alfieri, an older character, as I often do, and it really started something in me. And then I was in plays throughout high school, and then I went to college. Again, I wasn't going to get involved in theater, but I followed a theater major to her audition, and I asked the director if I could be a stagehand, and he asked me to audition. And I wound up getting cast in the Miss Firecracker contest in college, and it sort of spiraled out from there.
It's funny that you say that because I had a very similar experience with theater. I didn't start thinking about it until I was a sophomore in high school, and then I finally got on stage when I was a senior. So it's just very interesting to see the parallels with your journey. Now, you found this new interest. Tell us about what happened next, and ultimately, how did you end up in New York City?
I continued on through college. I was heavily involved in the theater department, but I always maintained I was a business major, and I was never going to do this other than purely as a hobby. I mean, it was always a passion in me, and it was something. It was the first thing I owned in my life. I mean, I had been exposed to other things through my parents and sort of the things you do, but this is the first thing I found on my own. And then when I was graduating from college, I had to I went to a summer stock season auditioning in Boston, Massachusetts, and I wound up getting a dual job as both a producer and an actor for a summer stock company on Block Island in Rhode Island. And to be honest, it wasn't the best experience, but it sort of triggered something in me that maybe maybe this is more than just a hobby or a passing interest. And at that point, I made the decision that I didn't really know what to do. So I decided that I was going to put all my resources into moving to New York. I wasn't really familiar with Buffalo or the theater scene. I hadn't been involved in that. But I sort of said, well, you kind of have to go to New York, and I can get a job in business there and also pursue my interests. So I moved to New York with a few classmates who I had done plays in college, and sort of started the groundwork as an actor. I started taking acting classes. I studied with some legendary acting teachers, William Hickey, Uta Hagen at HB Studios. I did a lot of gritty off Broadway theater, and that's where it went from being an idea of something to becoming a real passion. Once I started getting into the psychology of acting and developing a character and script analysis and learning what I was doing as opposed to just sort of feeling my way through it, it ignited something. And it was something that, I think I took my talent and I grew with my experiences in New York.
No, it's interesting because you didn't have to abandon your original degree in business. You were actually able to add your acting experience and interests to that. That way you could have the best of both worlds. You had your foundation and you can explore those creative outlets, which is pretty cool. And I think everybody wants to be able to do that. So, our first guest, Dudney, he had talked about his experience moving to the city and the hardships he had to face. So when you moved to the city, what helped you settle in knowing that you had both theater
Right.
and business as options?
Well, I mean, for me, it was a little bit easier because one of my good friends from college, actually, his mother remarried and left him the apartment. So I had a landing pad and I moved with a couple of my good friends who are involved with the theater. So I was always holding on to this idea, the business degree, that's sort of the field I would pursue. And acting was still going to be a sidebar, but I was going to get involved in it. But as I became more involved, I mean, first of all, I came from Niagara Falls, and moving to New York City is a huge leap culturally, psychologically. I mean, you're sheltered on a certain level growing up in Western New York. For me, growing up, going to Buffalo was a huge trip. So moving to New York City was a huge leap of faith. I mean, I had the summer stock experience, which helped, and a few other experiences. I traveled around, but like I said, my roommate from college had an apartment. His mother remarried, so we were able to move there. I had friends from college, and we just sort of made the leap. We went in. I got a temp job working at the World Trade Center. And I got jobs in restaurants and started taking acting classes. And culturally, it was so enlightening to me. I felt like for the first time, I start to became who I was.
Okay, so you moved in with some friends, you got a temp job,
Right.
you're able to get settled. So what were some of those things that you discovered while being in the city that helped you get to the next level?
Well, I embraced New York, and for me, it was a bit of a cultural renaissance. Like I said, I hadn't grown up in the arts, so I went to concerts, I went to plays. My friends were with me. We made new friends. I worked in restaurants, met people from all over the world. New York is if you've lived a relatively sheltered existence, I think New York is the ultimate place because you meet people of all different nationalities, ethnicities. You become friends. It's a melting pot. People find New York to be not friendly. I found it the opposite. I found it to be one of the most open places I had ever been. And for me, it showed me a lot about the world. And I think that helped me as an artist, as an actor, because it really defined who I am today. I mean, as you're a kid and you're growing up, you're exposed to things through your parents and their experiences, but then you have to go out and make your own experiences. And for me, New York was an evolution of my artistic self and my personal self, where I also took acting classes, did a lot of gritty off Broadway work, and that's sort of the foundation of who I am now.
Yeah, I feel like everybody has their own opinion about the city, but it sounds like what you're saying is when embracing a new environment, just be open-hearted and open-minded because you never know what opportunity may present itself, but you don't want to limit yourself with your own biases. So, I mean, how would you describe working as an actor in New York?
Well, to be quite honest with you, I mean, New York is great, but a lot of the paid acting work, New York is musical theater, it's classical theater. It's New York is a tight-knit ship with what drama school you went to. I mean, over time you make alliances, and you grow, but it's kind of I found that I was always more attracted to grittier type of work, like where some people in theater are inspired by Shakespeare or Les Mis. I was always like Sam Shepard or Tennessee Williams. And to be honest, professionally, those plays aren't really done that often. You'd be surprised. A lot of the paid acting work, and I didn't come from a huge amount of money, is in musicals and is in Shakespeare festivals. And the kind of work I wanted at the time, it was always like Quentin Tarantino and that kind of stuff. And I just thought that's the kind of stuff I like to do, stuff I still like to do. And I just thought I was making money as an actor, and I was a working actor, but I just sort of want to expand my horizon and see. Basically, I went for greener pastures.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, I get it. You're constantly improving your craft, and even when you hit roadblocks, you seem to have found a way around it to continue to grow. And a part of that growth, you
Right.
added the experience of being a manager as well as a producer to your resume. So, how did that come about, and how would you relate that experience to being an actor?
Well, first of all, most of that came out of necessity and trying to create work for myself as an actor. Because there is a big difference between New York and Los Angeles. When you go to New York, a lot of people, I mean, it's an artistic city, and being an actor and being part of the arts is an important part of that community. But when you go to Los Angeles, it's completely a business. You're in a business town, and the business is films and television. And it's a different mindset. It's a different everything. And the producing end of it, I had mentioned before that I had worked as a producer and studied business. The producer is the person who sort of develops the project. And basically, I was mostly developing projects to involve myself in stories I wanted to tell. So that was why I got involved in producing. And the management is a similar thing. I had a friend who was working for a management company, and she said, "Would you want to get involved?" So I started working for her for a while, and as a talent manager. This is basically finding talent or developing talent and helping them find jobs in film and television, basically like an agent. And so again, it was mostly out of necessity, but through that process of both producing content and working as a talent manager, I learned a lot about the industry myself, and how to possibly help people.
But yeah, it's one thing to refine and improve upon yourself, but when it comes to teaching and mentoring, there's like this whole other aspect of growth that you can make, and in some ways, it allows you to get a better perspective of what you already know. Since you have the lens of a manager and producer, what would you recommend for actors that are trying to refine their branding and just overall presentation when looking for agents and representation?
Right. Well, first and foremost, I think it's important to really love it. I mean, I don't, it's a very difficult and challenging industry, and I think you have to really be passionate about it. Secondly, I think it's important to surround yourself with talented people. People, your the quality of your work gets better when you're around better people. I always made it a point, especially when I was in Los Angeles, not to feel like the big fish, because sometimes in a smaller market you can feel like a big fish, but always surround yourself with people you admire to raise your game. I think that's very important, but it's important to be realistic about yourself, how you fit into the business. And there's certain people who have, they're more marketable at different phases in their career. Some people might be 18 years old and have a great look, but by the time they're 24, their look might not be as marketable. And somebody who might not be marketable in their 20s and 30s might be more marketable in their 40s and 50s. It's important to understand the business. And we have the internet where you can find auditions pretty much anywhere. So I think using the internet as a tool, and always being aware of everything you can is an important part of being an actor. But it's being realistic, making yourself as strong as you can at your craft, putting yourself out into a lot of different places, but being very specific, understanding who you are and how you fit into the business, and then researching all around. If you want to do theater, you should know every theater season, read all the plays, know which parts you're right for, make sure the people who are casting the plays know that you are interested in that play. And then keep going at it, and then eventually you'll get work. I was given a very good advice by a casting director. It's one of the best advices I've ever heard. If you're in New York or Los Angeles, it's your job to make yourself as specific a type as possible, and then make the top casting directors know you. And then when that type comes up, they think about you. So it's really important to, like you said, be on brand. And some people are just better types than other people, and that's an obstacle. But with the ability to create content, we have, phones with high definition. Pretty much anybody can create content now. If you're struggling, start creating your content. If you have an original voice, you will find an audience. If you're truly authentic and have something to say, I truly believe that with all the resources we have available to us now, with the internet and different streaming platforms, you will find a voice. The path you take is dependent on who you are and what you want. You can play by the rules. The rules are you go, you get an agent, you try to fit into the casting system, you audition. That's one path. That's the traditional path that's been going on since they made movies and plays. But now in this era, if you have a voice, you have a phone, you have equipment, you can create your own content. And if there's an audience for it, you can find that audience and build yourself independently. I think that's what makes this era very unique and really exciting, because now there's no gatekeepers. If you're great, you can put something great up. You can show them you're great, whereas maybe nobody would have ever known 15, 20 years ago.
Well, I have to say that was a very strong point that you made, and I think that will inspire a lot of people to just take themselves seriously, even if others don't. So, I mean, looking back at everything, your experiences, your journey, and the progression, what would you want up-and-coming actors to know, and what do you think is helpful for them to start thinking about now?
One thing I took away, especially from being the manager in LA and coming back to Buffalo, which wasn't initially by choice. Family illness brought me back to the area, and my family was here, and that was great, but it wasn't a specific choice at the time to move back here. But I've grown to really love it. And especially post-pandemic, because the world has changed so dramatically, so has the industry. You can get into significant projects wherever you are. Casting directors in New York and Los Angeles 10, 15 years ago, if they didn't know you, they wouldn't look at your tape. But now, because of COVID, the world has changed, and people now have found a new way to communicate. So major casting offices are seeing people for roles that would have never had an opportunity. And you can live in a smaller market like Buffalo and still get great opportunities, not only here locally, because there's a fabulous theater scene and an up-and-coming film scene, but you can shoot to other areas. For example, what I like to do since I moved here is, my brother lives in Boston, so I make myself available to the Boston market. I'm always submitting to things in New York. I'm submitting to things in Pittsburgh. So using Buffalo as kind of a satellite, but also using the internet and the different opportunities available in all the different areas to keep myself ahead of the game and know which projects are coming, trying to get myself seen for projects I'm available for. And oddly enough, I've gotten some opportunities even in the last couple of years that I maybe wouldn't have even gotten when I was in New York and Los Angeles. I mean, that's partly because the business has changed, but it's also because I'm on top of things and I'm sort of ahead of the game. And I would just, if I was to give any advice, is not to limit yourself. Always keep your eyes open, know who you are, and always try to position yourself for the things that are available to you, because you just don't know what's going to happen. I mean, that's the scary part about the business. That's the frustrating part of the business. That's also the fun part of the business. I mean, something can happen beyond your wildest dreams, and opportunity is out there. Sometimes you just really have to go look for it.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Stan, for taking the time for some small talk. I'm sure that there are plenty of people that are interested in learning more about you. So what's the best way for people to continue to follow your journey?
Well, you can always go to my website, stanklimactor.com, STANKLIM actor.com. That gives you pretty much all the information. Yeah.
Well, that concludes another episode of Small Talk with Tony. I want to thank my guest Stan for joining us today.
Thanks, Tony.
And thank you for watching. You can check out all the latest episodes by visiting us at tonyvideo.com/smalltalk. Be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram where you can get the latest news. See you next time.
Choose ain't really up to you.